Hi guys, welcome to this video. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to cut a corset with yoke. It's going to be a top for this class, but this is a gown sample. The yoke can be cut like this or in another form like this one, depending on how you want it to be. Okay, please, if you're new to this channel, kindly subscribe. Let's get started. Now I'm placing the shoulder measurement divided by 2. I'm drafting a basic bodice block first, then the armhole measurement divided by 2. Then on the armhole line I place another my shoulder measurement, and then I connected. Then I'm going to be marking the shoulder to bust, the shoulder to waist, and shoulder to blouse length. Like I said, the shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waist, and shoulder to blouse length. The shoulder to bust is raised up by 0.5 and the shoulder to under bust is raised by 0.5 also. So shoulder to bust supposed to be 10.5, but I used 10. Shoulder to under bust supposed to be 13.5, I used 13. Okay, and then the full length. Now if you're doing a gown, you're going to replace the length. I'll still drop another video on the gown, but for this is just a blouse. So I'm putting the bust measurement divided by 4. Now for the waist, because I want the waist to be snatched, okay, I reduce the measurement by 0.75. It means that I reduce the measurement by 3 inches, the measurement of the waist by 3 inches. So I put the measurement of the round blouse length and then I connected it. Okay, now for the shoulder slant I went down by 1.5, then I went up again by 0.5 for the sewing allowance. Okay, and then I connected it to the natural neckline 3 inches. Then the remaining part on the armhole I divided by 2 and went in by 0.75 to draw the armhole curve. Okay, now this is just a basic bodice. Okay, then now we're going to be converting it to a bustier. Now the neckline that I'm using is 3.4 inches by 3.5. It all depends on you, or you can make it 3.5 by 3.5, whatever you want, because that will be the neckline for the yoke. Okay, so I curve it out with my curve ruler. Okay, now I'm going to be placing the darts. Now for a bustier you need your waist dart, your bust dart, your shoulder tight, that's all the over bust tightening and under bust tightening. Now I'm putting the nipple to nipple divided by 2. The nipple to nipple divided by 2 is 7, and divided by 2 is 3.5. Is 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. Okay, so I marked it on the bust and then on the full length. Okay, now on the waistline I'll be taking ½ inch on both sides of the dart. Okay, I took ½ inch on both sides of the dart. Normally I'm supposed to take 0.75, but because I still want another dart, so I took ½ inch on both sides. Then I came down by 1 inch from the bust, and then I went up by 1 inch from the full length, and then I drew out the dart. Okay, so that's basically the waist dart. Then for the bust dart I came down by 1 inch from the bust line and connected it to the bust point, which is on the nipple to nipple line. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to measure the midpoint of the armhole. I came down by 7 for this corset from the neckline. Okay, so I now measure the midpoint of the armhole. Then from that midpoint I connected to the bust point. Then you now decide how low you want it to be. I made it to be 7, like I said. I made it low to be 7. So on that line I'm going in by 1 inch. Okay, so I went in by 1 inch on that line, and then that's because we are drawing a corset, right? So I'm going to be curving it to the armhole area. I explained more while I was drafting because I wanted it to rhyme with it, but it was too long, so I had to do a voiceover. Okay, so now on the line that is coming from the shoulder, I marked 0.75 on both sides of that line for the over bust tightening. This is for the over bust tightening. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to do the under bust tightening. So to do the under bust tightening, you're going to use your bust divide by 4 minus your under bust divide by 4. Okay, mine is 1.25, so I took 0.5 on one side and 0.75 on the other side. That way I have a 1.25. So I put that line outside the first that line that is coming from the waist. You know, we first drew our waist out. Okay, so that point was taken outside the dart leg. Okay, so now I'm connecting it from the bust point to that, or my tightening on the bust, and then I connected to the other side. Okay, then from that point to the waist, the dart leg that we have on the waist, exactly the dart leg that we have on the waist, I reduce it because the front has does not have to be, I didn't make it equal so that the front will not be too small. Now I'm drawing another dart on this front part so that the front will lap well. So I took 0.5 on the under bust and on the full length, then I slanted it to the chest line like that. Okay, to where, over the chest line where my cup is starting from, so there will be a dart at that point so that the front will lap well. Okay, so that 1 inch that I took for the cup, I drew it on the bust point to form a straight line. Okay, so it's going to help me to draw a cup. Okay, so from that under bust, I went up a bit by like 1 inch and then I curve it. I did it with a pen first, and I'm going to be doing it with my curve ruler. So from on, I marked that 1 inch that I marked on the bust. Okay, you can see it. I marked it up to the under bust. Okay, and then I draw a curve from the bust point to the under bust that leg. Okay, so on the other side also I came out by 1.25. okay, and I used the shoulder measurement, which is 8. I mark it on the bust to know where I'll break for the cup. Okay, so that shoulder measurement, I marked it on the bust, and then I'm going to connect it from the 1.25 that went into the shoulder, that mark that I've marked. That's the shoulder measurement, so that I have enough room for my bust. Okay, then you draw out the neck of the cup, and then you connect it like this. You can see that the cup has come out. Our cup has come out, and then this upper part will be the yoke. So when I curve rule the line, you can see that the yoke has come out. So that part will be the yoke for the front. You can now decide to design it anyhow you want. You may make it to be slanted like the one I showed in the video the other time. You will make it to be full like the other picture that I showed. So it all depends on how you want to style your yoke. Okay, it all depends on how you want to style your yoke. Okay, so for this down part, now I already have one dart, and then I want to put another dart on the side. So from the actual nipple to nipple line, I measure what is left on the waist, and then I divided it by 2 to get the midpoint. Okay, so I place that measurement on the bust point, the under bust, just to get a straight line. This other darts may not necessarily be straight. It all depends on what you want. So I drew the line up to the bust point, even though my darts will not reach the bust point. So on that new line, on that waistline, on the new line, I marked 0.25 on both sides. Okay, and then I slanted it as if I want to draw the dart to the bust point, but I stopped where the cup is. Okay, I stopped it where the cup is. That way I've been able to put another dart, and that way I've been able to take 1.5 for my dart on the waist, even though I shared it. Okay, so I took 0.5 on both sides of the full length, the dart coming from the nipple to nipple, to tightening the waist area. Okay, that's the stomach area. Now for the back, I'm marking the same measurement. That's the shoulder divide by 2, and then the armhole divide by 2 to get my chest line for the back. Okay, then I marked the zipper allowance. So I realized that I need to put the zipper allowance, so I first marked the zipper allowance, then I'm putting the shoulder measurement back. Okay, so this is the shoulder measurement now. Okay, so Next thing I'm going to do is to mark the shoulder to bust like I did for the front. The shoulder to bust that I used for the front is what I'm using for the back. Now for the back does not have another bust, so I mark shoulder to waist -1 because of the bust that I've taken. So if your shoulder to waist is 16.5 like mine, for the back it's going to be 15.5. Or if the difference is more up to 2, that's the difference between your shoulder to bust and shoulder to waist for the front and back. If it's up to 2, that's what you're going to minus. So the next thing I'm doing now is the zipper that to prevent the bulge at the back. So I took 0.75 inward, and then I took it on the main bodies and on the zipper allowance, and then from that point I put my waist divided by 4, then from the slanted line also the bust divided by 4, and then the round full length divided by 4. Then I connected it. Okay, so right now I want to put the shoulder slant. For the back is 1 inch, then I went up by 0.5 and marked the natural neckline 3 inches, and then I form my slant for the back. Then the neck depth for the back I'm using 2 inches or 1.5, depends on what you want. Okay, so I just drew it with using the same neck wideness that I used for the front earlier, and then you curve it out. I first used 2 inches, but I later reduced it to 1.5. It's like, so I measure what is left on the armhole, and then I divide by 2, and then I went in by 0.25. then I drew out my armhole curve. Now for the waist, I measured the actual waist divided by 2 to get the midpoint, and then I went back straight to the first straight line that we had for the zipper line in order to make my line to be straight. Okay, then I measure what I had there, measure it on the chest line on the full length to have a straight line. Then on that line I marked the waist that which is 0.75 on both sides, and then I have my waist that. So like I did for the front, I'm going down by I'll go down by 7 inches. What I'm explaining here is that if you want the up to be tightened a bit, I'm taking 0.5 on both sides of the dart, or of that dart's leg. Then I took 0.5 also on the full length to make the back to be a bit tightened. Okay, so I drew it, I connected to the waist dart. Okay, and then this other waist, what is remaining also like I did for the front, I mark it, got the midpoint, and then I try to mark the line, and then I'm taking 0.25 on both sides of that leg. Okay, so if you don't want to take too much, you can just share your darts well. Okay, instead of using 0.75 for the actual waist that, you can make it to be 0.5, but I made it to be 0.75 and still took 0.25 on both sides of this new line. So I've taken 2 inches. All I just have to do is to replace the darts that I've taken, place it back, the one I took at the upper part, since already I've reduced my waist measurement. Okay, so that it's not too tight. So remember to add your dart allowance back. Okay, so now I want to draw a curve like the video I showed, though this curve is not exactly like that video. I'm just creating like a style line to have an opening for the back. Okay, so I want this the yoke to start the same way, the same point where the front one starts, which is 7. So I just connected the 7, draw a curve from that 7, okay, straight to the chest line as you can see, and then I'm drawing a curve, okay, and opening for the back. So like I said, I reduced the neck depth for the back. Okay, so that since there will be an opening, I just reduce the neck depth to be higher. okay, and then I'm drawing a curve from that part to have an opening. This is how you do it, okay. So you can see the yoke for the back. It all depends on the style that you want for the back. You can also decide to leave it like that and put your zipper. So for the back we have 1, 2 and 3, and then you also write the sewing allowance that you'll be adding back, okay. Now if you don't want a zipper allowance for the back like I'm explaining now, you can just remove that point, okay. And then if you want to put an opening at the back, you can decide how you want it to be. That part now is zipper allowance, okay. And then this next one that I'm doing now is when if you want the back to be opened and you want to put a rope, okay, you just mark how open you want it to be. Like if you put 1.5, by the time you open it to be 3 inches wide. If you put 2 inches, by the time you open it to be 4 inches wide, okay. So right now I'm putting 1.5. I made it straight. You can also decide to make it slanted depending on how you want it. So that part that I just marked now is going off too, because the part in the back will be open if you want it to be open, right. So right now the back first part is now smaller, then we have the second part which is labeled as 2. So now we have the center back, side back 1 and side back 2. You can also make the down part to be a bit slanted. I went up by 1 inch and then I slanted it. So right now for the front also I'm going up by 1 inch, and so I slant it back to the waistline, that's the dart line. So this is basically it. Like I said, you're going to write the allowance that you'll be replacing. So for the front, I've taken about 2 inches for the dart, so on the waistline, okay. So I'm labeling them first. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus the yoke is 6. So I calculated the dart that I've taken, and then I wrote it down plus the sewing allowance I'll be adding like 1.5, and then I placed it. You mark all those things, then you label it. The part that is up, you label it as up. The part that is down, you label it. The part that is center front, you label it, so that when you want to join, it will be easy for you. I'm just explaining, like I may want to put like a design at the upper part of this part. So I'm just going in by 2.5 from the center front on the yoke line. Then I mark a distance of 1 inch from that 2.5, and then I'll go up by 1 inch also. I saw the style somewhere, but I've not been able to put it here. So you just have to be creative when you are sewing, okay. So I went up by 1 inch like I said, and then I drew out a triangle. It's looking very small right now. It looks very small because by the time you finish sewing it's become wider than that, and I don't want it to be too exposing, so I made it to be very very tiny. So distance that I used is 1.5 and 1.25 between the first and the second line, and then I went up by 1.25 or 1 inch also, and then I drew out the line. You can see that it's looking very very small because by the time you finish sewing it will be wide open, just like to have an opening at the upper part from the on the yoke part, okay. So I'm cutting it out right now. I first cut out the waist that's the dart on the nipple to nipple line, because I want to fold the bust dart, okay. So I folded that point to make the upper part to be equal. If you fold it, you see that they are not equal on that part, and then now I'll be cutting the other dart also. Just cut it away. I just need to be able to fold my waist dart. So I'm cutting out my bust dart rather. So I'm cutting out the first cup. You've seen the first cup here, and then I'm folding that bust dart. You have to fold it before you cut it out. And then you blend the lines to make sure they are equal before you cut. Now I'm cutting out the second cup. You can use your masking tape to hold it firm before you cut. So this is the yoke. Now I'm cutting out that opening. It's optional. It's just to have like an opening on the upper part. So I'm cutting out the back also. I first cut out that zipper allowance that will not be needed, and then I'm cutting the parts that will be opened. It's optional if you want to put a modesty panel. So then I'm cutting out the yoke. Now after cutting out the neck line for the back, you can see how this place is. So I need to put another paper there, like where will be the extension to put the button. Okay, so I'll do that later on. Now I'm cutting out the dart for the back pieces. Like I said earlier, you need to mark your pattern so that you know which side is up, which side you are joining to the other side. It makes your work easier when you want to sew. So these are the pieces for the back and the front. Okay, now this is the part that I cut off. I want to put an extension for the back line, that's the yoke part where I'll be using as a zipper. Okay, so I just need like an extension of 1 inch. So I'm putting my masking tape on it. You can also do this before you cut through. Okay, so I just added an extension of 1 inch that will make it overlap with where I'll be fixing the button. And then you can also decide to just fix a loop if you want. So guys, this is how to cut a corset top with yoke. Okay, and it's the waist is already snatched. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you.